In this video, we will discuss all about weight and weight loss. And this is a big topic. So to break it down, here's what you're gonna get today. First, we're gonna go over who needs to be thinking about weight and weight loss. Then we're gonna cover why our bodies gain or lose weight and what it means for you. We'll talk about how our body accumulates fat and how our body loses fat. And understanding some of the basics of body science and metabolism ultimately is going to help you understand how to think about your diet and your health, help you understand whether you want to gain or lose weight, and ultimately help you achieve your health goals. Then finally, we're going to cover when is the right time to engage in weight loss and weight management. And finally, we're going to cover my favorite part of all, what you need to do to start engaging in a healthy weight loss approach and one that lasts a long time. Hey there, I'm Dr. Anna. I'm a medical doctor. I was trained in Italy, and I'm here to bring you the information you need to master your health. Okay, so let's start. Who is this video for? If you're an adult who struggles with your weight, this video is for you. If you want to understand how we gain and lose weight, this video is for you. If you live in the USA or in a country with a westernized diet, this video is for you. So let's start by discussing some context. It is no secret that Americans generally struggle with their weight and that most people in the US are interested in weight loss. Why is this? Well, the statistics really say it all. Nearly 1/2 of Americans are either overweight or obese, and the rate of obesity has more than tripled in the last 60 years. And what this means is that the rate of obesity was not always this high just a few decades ago. So this problem is new relative to the history of the world, and this problem is right now. And likely it's affecting you or your loved ones. So what exactly changed in the last 60 years? Is it genetics? No, that doesn't explain it. Let's talk big picture first. It is not all our fault. Don't let anyone blame you entirely for your challenges with your weight. Truth is, our world has changed around us. It is a combination of our lifestyle and our diet that have shifted so dramatically in the last decades. So for example, some changes that have occurred in the last decades include our technology. Because of the internet and the advent of all our new tools at our fingertips, we are socializing less often outside of our houses and we're spending more time alone on our devices. Therefore, we generally speaking are getting less physical activity on a day-to-day basis. And because of this technology, our jobs have shifted a lot. Most of us, if we're working with a computer, we are living a more sedentary lifestyle at the workplace. And that is just a fact of life right now. And then our lifestyle started to shift as well. Some of these technological tools and advances have allowed us to do things like order almost anything online and get it delivered. We're not even going shopping for our clothes or our groceries anymore in person. Part of this is thanks to the very modern boom in the convenience economy that was pushed forward from COVID. But honestly, this was already happening before COVID hit our world. And something else that has been going on for quite some time is the fact that, at least in the United States, communities are built for cars and not for pedestrians. So there are some neighborhoods that don't even have sidewalks on their streets, and others, there's nowhere to even walk to. All in all, this is driving down the amount of physical activity that we are getting in a day. And then we have the food that has changed. Now, the truth is, it's not our discovery of lab-grown meat is what is so dramatically different. Instead, it's that in food manufacturing, there is sugar being added to almost everything you can imagine. And we know that this type of sugar, which is often table sugar added in to make things taste sweet and delicious, it often can cause addiction. But this is not just a problem in the grocery stores. We have this kind of food everywhere we turn. It's in our gas stations, it's in our school cafeterias, it's in our work vending machines, it's at our sporting events, it's in airports, it's in malls. I literally can't name it all because everywhere you turn, you're going to be exposed to very sugary foods. Not to mention the fact that we're being advertised to eat foods like this all the time on our social media apps and billboards on highways and TV commercials. So when it comes to healthy living in the Western world, let me be very clear. The odds are against us, and keep this in mind. But in order to understand how we can solve this problem in the long term, it is fundamental that we first understand, why does weight gain or weight loss in the body even happen? What does this mean for us? So let's first discuss the differences between gaining or losing weight, metabolically speaking. And for this discussion, I want us to think about weight in terms of adiposity, or the amount of fat on our body. I am not going to be talking about weight gain in terms of lean tissue like muscles. So let's start with weight gain. Weight gain happens for one one of two reasons. Either our body is in a state of growth or repair, so maybe we're a child and we're growing, we're a teenager and we're in our adolescence, we're a pregnant woman and we're trying to grow a baby. Or the second reason, which is the one we're going to focus on today, we are taking in more energy than our body can use. Now, additionally, there are some medical conditions or medications that can also cause weight gain. These are going to be things like PCOS or polycystic ovarian syndrome, hypothyroidism or other thyroid disorders, and then medications like steroids for anti-inflammatory effects. So we are not going to be discussing about those things today. That is not the purpose of our video here. Now, weight loss, on the other hand, happens because we are spending more energy than we're taking in. Now, this could be because we're more physically active and we're exercising more, so we're burning more energy and more fuel. Or this could happen because we're doing the same amount of activity, but we're taking in fewer calories and we're restricting the amount of fuel that's entering our bodies. Or it's a combination of both. Now, weight loss could also be occurring because our metabolism is more active by a condition or a medication that's causing it to ramp up. And this happens in things like hyperthyroidism or even some cancers that can cause body wasting. And of course, there are lots of drugs that can cause weight loss. But again, we are not going to discuss about those today in this video. Okay, so now that we defined what weight gain and weight loss are, we can talk about fat accumulation. So this is a specific type of weight gain and the type that we're interested in for this video. So to dive into this topic, we're first going to talk about why fat accumulation happens in the first place. And spoiler alert, this is not a defect of Mother Nature. This is actually meant to protect you. Okay, so what I want you to do right now is picture in your mind going back 1,000,000 years, literally 1,000,000 years. I know that sounds dramatic, but that's actually the amount of time we need to be thinking about in terms of how our body came to be. So our ancestors were primitive people. These were the hunter-gatherers. They lived off the land. They were living with nature like other animals in the animal kingdom. And they hunted their food, so they were eating other animals, or they were gathering their food, things like berries in a bush. So basically, they had food whenever it was available to them, given by nature. This was before the invention of agriculture or growing our food. Now, because of this, we were designed to be able to thrive in a natural setting. And what this means is that our bodies have mechanisms that literally do something with every single calorie coming in. Nothing goes to waste. So the concept is either we use the calories that we're eating right away, or we store that energy away for later. And the storage comes in a couple of different forms. We have glycogen, which is primarily glucose that's stored into the muscles and the liver that can be used to be quickly broken down for energy later. Or we have our longer term version of storage, and this is fat. And the idea of having fat on our body is that it can give us sustained energy for much longer periods of time if we are not coming into contact with food and we can't find any. This is otherwise known as starvation. Now, there are other mechanisms at play that are interacting to give our body fuel that it needs to sustain itself without taking in new food, but that is a very complicated subject. And honestly, you don't need to know all those details to understand the concept that what doesn't get used gets stored. So remember, this allowed us to live and survive long periods of time without finding food. So it just makes sense the way it's set up. But let's pull ourselves back into the present time. We literally have the opposite problem today. It's not that we can't find enough food, it's that we have too much food all around us at all times. So therefore, people are inadvertently accumulating fat as a regular occurrence. And unfortunately, this causes undue consequences on people's health. So what does this mean for you? What is absolutely scientifically clear is that excessive weight gain can lead to various diseases. So we can chunk all of these diseases together under this umbrella term called metabolic disease. When we gain excessive amounts of weight and we're in a state of obesity, there are a lot of negative consequences on many organ systems of our body, like our heart, our liver, our kidneys, our brain, you name it. And it's important to keep in mind that these diseases are what are called acquired diseases, meaning you're not born with it, you develop it later in life. So now this brings with it both good and bad news. Let's start with the bad news. The bad news is that some of these health problems that are associated with these chronic metabolic diseases can literally be catastrophic and life-threatening. Think about something like a heart attack or a stroke. While that is an acute medical event, meaning something that quickly happens and needs immediate medical intervention and immediate treatment, the disease itself underlying it, the heart disease, the atherosclerosis, the fatty plaque buildup, that is not a short-term disease. that is a long-term disease that's been building up over many years. Now, what's the good news with these metabolic diseases being acquired? Well, two things. The first thing is that if it's acquired, meaning you're not born with it and you develop it later, then usually there are things you can do to prevent it. And that is absolutely true when it comes to metabolic disease. And the second piece of good news here is that because we acquire it later, in certain cases, we can literally reverse it. And if that does not feel empowering to you, I don't know what is. Now, if you're finding this video useful so far, and I really hope you are, I want you to please subscribe so this video can reach more people and it helps our message get out to those who really need it. So now at this point, we understand really well why our body wants to gain fat in the first place and why it's set up this way. So now we're ready to answer the next question. And that is, how exactly does fat accumulate on the body? How does that work? So in order to answer the question of how our body acquires fat, we need to lay down two foundational concepts. So the first concept is the idea of calorie intake or calories coming in. Really simply, this is just the energy you're getting from food or beverages. And then we have the second concept, which is calories expended or calories out. And the concept of calories out is really formed from two different elements. And this is our basal metabolism and any activity that we do. So let's start with basal metabolism. Now, this is the trickier part because there's a lot of chemistry going on behind the scenes and it can be slightly different from one person to another. So here's the most simple way I can explain it to you. Our basal metabolism is all of the basic functioning that our body needs to do to stay alive and to function. You can think of this as all of the energy that the body needs to do the processing that does not require you knowing anything about it. Basically, this is the unconscious stuff going on underneath the surface. For example, we need a lot of energy from food to help maintain our body temperature. We need energy to help maintain our immune system. We need it to make hormones. We need it to help our muscles grow, to help maintain our organs with healthy, active cells. You get the idea. So this is all the stuff that needs to happen in order for you to be alive and thriving. Now, you might be wondering at this point, what causes our metabolism to be at the pace or at the rate that it is? Well, this is driven both by genetics and the types of fuel that you're actually introducing into your body. In other words, what you eat. Think of this as the quality of the fuel you're putting into your machine. Now, it may in fact surprise you that most of the calories we need to eat in a day are actually for our basal metabolism. It's not for working out and doing extra activities. It's for the basic functioning of life. This is why sometimes you'll hear people say things like, you even burn calories in your sleep. Well, of course, by being alive, you're burning calories because your body needs energy to be alive. Now, in terms of how basal metabolism works, this is a very complex subject. The entire subject of biochemistry is all talking about that. And this concept is trickier than it seems. I'm going to be honest with you. It actually took me years of studying biochemistry in my undergraduate degree when I studied nutrition and then in medical school to finally get this very foundational concept. It needed to click. And that is, where is metabolism happening? Ultimately, metabolism is happening inside of our cells. And then some of you might be hearing me and you're thinking to yourself, what are our cells? Are we talking about like cell biology? We are. In a nutshell, these are the basic building blocks of what make up your body. So I like to think of it as little grains of sand that make up a sand castle. You see the whole sand castle, but when it's broken down, it's really just a bunch of sand. And something that you fundamentally want to understand is that the healthier your cells are, the healthier your whole body is. And that just makes sense. And not only this, the healthier your cells are, the better your metabolism is going to work. Now be aware, there are many things that can mess up our metabolism. And a really big one is inflammation, which you may have heard something about. But know that there are a lot of things that can be done to help maintain a healthy metabolism. Now, we covered our first part of the calories out component, which was basal metabolism. And the second part is any form of activity. And I'm not just talking about physical activity like pumping iron at the gym or running a marathon or even riding a bike. I'm talking about any activity, even thinking, anything conscious, playing music, singing, you name it, driving. All of that requires energy. And the more we do, the more energy we're using. So now we have laid the groundwork for understanding the purpose of fueling our body and what the fuel ultimately is used for. So how then is fat accumulated? How does that play into the mix? So this part's actually quite simple. Any calories that are taken in that are not used for energy or for any metabolic function are stored away for later. And that storage form is fat. And the actual biochemistry of how that happens is extremely complex, and we're not going to go into that today. But if you are interested interested in learning more about that and taking a deeper dive, I want you to go ahead and comment below and let me know. I am so happy to talk about that stuff. It's pretty scientific and it can be a heavy subject, but it's one of my passions and I'm happy to make videos about that if it's what people are looking for. Okay, so we just talked about how fat is formed and how fat is accumulated. That now allows us to dive into how fat is lost or how weight loss occurs. So to answer this question, I'm going to introduce you to another simple concept, and this is the idea of calorie balance. So calorie balance, quite simply, is the difference between the calories taken in and the calories expended out. Now, generally speaking, if that balance is positive, then we're going to acquire more fat because we're storing extra energy away that we didn't need to use. And then if that balance is negative, then we're going to enter into a weight loss zone. We're spending more than we're taking in. And then overall, if we're interested in maintaining our weight, we want that calorie balance to be about 0. So we're taking in just as much energy as we need to spend for completing all of our activities and our basal metabolism. So just to reiterate, technically to lose weight, we need to create a calorie deficit. Simple, right? Unfortunately, it's not that simple. Truth is, our body has several mechanisms to preserve our body's weight and to prevent weight loss from happening. And this happens because of something called the body's set point. Now, the set point can change when our body's weight changes. But what happens is our brain determines the calibration mark of where it's comfortable, and it can make changing that set point and changing your brain chemistry extremely difficult. Said another way, the body's set point is kind of like its preferred weight range. It doesn't want to go too low outside of that range, and the body will start to resist the change. And this is where the challenge lies. So our bodies are wired to defend against losing weight, and this makes sustaining weight loss so difficult for so many people. Unfortunately, the same is not true for gaining weight. Our body is very willing to acquire more fat. Remember the survival concept of hunters and gatherers? Our body thinks it's better to save up more energy for the future, since it doesn't guarantee when the next food is coming. And everything about how our body works and how anything in nature works is that it wants to survive. So even though our body is going to resist weight loss, it is really important to understand how this works in order to engage in effective weight management strategies. And now that we understand these foundational points, we're ready to turn over to thinking about when is the right time to start engaging in healthy weight loss. So far in our conversation about weight loss, we've covered a lot of topics. So let's do a quick recap. We talked about who needs to be thinking about weight management and weight loss. We talked about why our bodies want to gain or lose weight and what that means for you. And we talked about how the body actually acquires fat or loses fat. And now I want to address another key point in the weight story, and this is the idea of when to engage in weight loss. So in general, if we wait to start addressing our health until we have symptoms, we are unfortunately late. If you take nothing else away from this video, I want it to be this: the best way to treat any health condition or any disease is to prevent it from happening in the first place. And this is so true when it comes to metabolic diseases and metabolic health. And it just so happens that metabolic and chronic diseases that are linked to obesity happen to be some of the trickiest conditions to treat. It's part of the reason that we have an epidemic of these conditions. Now, why are these so hard to treat? Well, there's a few reasons. A first reason, which we mentioned before, is that our body resists changes to its weight. It has that preferred set point. The second reason is that our habits are foundational in what caused them in the first place. As human beings, in general, we are driven by our habits. We get used to doing certain things and used to certain behaviors that ultimately have led us to a point where we might be overweight or even have some of these health conditions, and it is notoriously difficult to change behavior. And then another reason why it's so difficult to tackle metabolic health and metabolic disease is because there's a key difference between quick fixes in the short term and lasting change for the long term. Unfortunately, when it comes to our metabolic health, not all solutions are alike. Many of the weight loss solutions that are on the market or that you know your friends or family have tried are unfortunately falling into the category of these quick fixes. It can be very profitable for some companies to give you a result in a short period of time because, hey, it works. But then ultimately, you're going to have to come back the next year and do it all again because it didn't last for the long term. So don't be fooled by this. Usually, the faster you can lose the weight, often the faster you can regain it right back. Now, that's not always true, but it's usually true. Now, here's another concept that not enough people are emphasizing, and that includes some doctors, is that in terms of your health overall, if you lose 50 pounds in 3 months, but 12 months later, you've regained 60 pounds, overall for your metabolic health, you didn't really accomplish anything. And when it comes to your metabolic health and your disease risk, that's really what matters. Overall, your goal should be to move the needle in the right direction for the long term. That's what's really impacting your health. So not to belabor the point, but the best time to jump on healthy weight management is yesterday. But the second best time is right now. So at this point, you're probably jumping out of your chair wondering what you need to be doing in order to jumpstart your health and your metabolism and lose the weight for good. And you may even be wondering, if it's not just simply about cutting calories, then what can we do to effectively lose weight and remain in shape for the rest of our lives? Well, we need to form new, simple, and healthy habits that drive us automatically into a state of improved health and overall well-being. And the most important thing is that this new approach is not just sustainable, but it's also healthy and backed by scientific evidence. Does such an approach exist? Fortunately, yes. And actually, there is more than one way. But I want to tell you about my absolute favorite way because it's the way that I live. So one of the best, most scientifically studied and amazing approaches to diet and lifestyle is the Mediterranean diet. Now, this diet emphasizes eating whole foods, lots of plant-based foods like fruits and vegetables, whole grains, nuts and seeds, legumes, and then eating some fish, some eggs, some high protein dairy sources, and less poultry and even less red meat, but even throwing in some wine and some dessert every now and then. It is a very sustainable, delicious, and fun approach to eating that some cultures in the Mediterranean area have been eating for thousands of years. So, of course, it stands the test of time. And now, research has been showing for decades numerous health benefits of the Mediterranean diet and Mediterranean adopted lifestyle habits. These include things like healthy weight management, heart health, brain health, mental health improvements, and lower rates of depression, the ability to have a healthier body and get more exercise and get better sleep, and reduce your risk of many chronic diseases. So the key thing here is that it's not about depriving yourself of anything, but it's about making healthy choices that are going to improve your overall health and well-being. So not only does it help you in weight loss, but it also improves your overall health and health trajectory for the long term. And one of the best things about the Mediterranean diet is its linkage to living a long time. In other words, improved longevity, which tends to be a really hot topic these days. So if you're ready to dive in and learn a lot more about the Mediterranean diet and lifestyle, I have the perfect video for you over here that gives a really simple way to get started today. Jump into that video and I'll see you over there.